To gain trust, you must be willing to give trust. Mm. Who's the one person you trust the most? And how did you come to trust them so much? Welcome to the Value Added Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about how to build trust as a leader. Not an easy endeavor because trust is built one day at a time. It is. Sometimes one encounter at a time. Indeed. So we're going to talk about building trust as a leader. I would like to start by defining what Bill and I mean by the word trust. We know that the English language seems to change with every passing moment. Each generation. Yeah. With each generation, sometimes for the better, sometimes not so good. So what do we mean by trust? The definition that we found that we really like: confidence. Definition of trust is confidence. It's a reliance or a resting of the mind on the integrity or the veracity or the justice, the friendship or character of another person. Mm. So trust really it is confidence. Again, it's that reliance, that resting of the mind on another person's integrity, justice, friendship, really the character of that person. So simply put, trust is confidence. Trust is confidence. Indeed. And one story that came to my mind when we were putting this content together years ago, I used to work, again, I think some of you who've been following us from the beginning of our journey will know, I grew up working at a camp. And at the camp, we provided rappelling, which is where you put the harness on and the rope and you kind of rappel off the cliff. And when I was learning how to do this, because it was going to be my job eventually to help others do it, I remember putting the harness on for the very first time to go over the cliff. And it was about probably a 30, 40 foot, just straight down sheer rock drop. Not terrible, but a good beginner's height. Hmm. So I remember I said, okay, I'm gonna do this for the first time. And when you rappel, I'm not sure how it works. I haven't done it in years, but you used to have what's called a belay. So somebody was belaying you, which means you're tied in with your harness, your carabiner, your little figure eight. The rope comes through your figure eight and then it goes up and through and then down to the ground to the person who's your safety net. And they have the other end of that rope, and it's their job. If you slip, they just close their fist on you can't go anywhere. You might fall 2 or 3 feet, but that's it. You're not going anywhere. And so your life is literally in their hands. Mm. So all they would have to do is let go of the rope and walk away. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. If you slip, you're potentially not going to make it out. So as I'm approaching the cliff to do this, I see my brother, year and a half older than me. And he was the one who was going to be belaying me, hooking me up, right, and getting me ready to go. And I'm thinking, okay, I got this. I got this. And there was immediate confidence. And why I had immediate confidence was because I knew John. So it clicked in my mind. The key to my trust in John was the fact that I knew John, right? I had a confidence in who he was as a person. So it was not hard for me after the moment of seeing John to step off the cliff. Mm-hmm. It actually, you talk about your shoulders dropping, like you knew the person, right? So you don't typically trust somebody you don't know. I mean, unless you're dying and bleeding out and you got an EMT, of course, but typically in the leadership, in a leadership context, you're not really going to trust somebody you typically don't know. So trust is confidence because of relationship. Trust is confidence because of the relationship. Obviously, with John being my brother and us being close, I had already had 15, 16 years of relational building with John. So again, trust is confidence, and a lot of times it is confidence because of a relationship. You know, it's similar to have a story when I first went to college, 2 college degrees. So this is the first degree. The school put us into peer groups and put us through an obstacle course, ropes course. Yeah. We didn't know anybody in this group, right? And we did, as Jerry, we did rappelling, we did the high wire walk between trees. We did the trust fall. Mm-hmm. And boy, the first activity was that trust fall. And I'm like, I don't know you. Why? How do I know you're going to catch me when I fall? I'm a bigger guy than I'm almost 6'4". Maybe not look that way on camera, but um, can you catch me? Right?
Right.
Right? Is that all those questions going through my mind? And our leader was just, coaching us through it. He was a senior, just, being our peer leader through this, and said, "No, Bill, they got you to do this." So when I did it, they caught me. I'm here. I'm fine. Right. But by the time we went through all those different events for that week, we had a group. We had a group of 20 of us that we were inseparable that first year. We went to every meal together. We hung out afterwards. We had parties together. We went to the movies together, all because of that process of becoming trustworthy, learning each other. And as we learned more and more from each other, the confidence grew.
Yeah. Yeah. That trust fall, I remember doing that one too when I was younger. And my boss, whose also name was Bill, different Bill, but he actually got his nose plopped because what happens is you interlock your hands. So your hand goes here just like this.
Right.
And the person falls off of a platform and everyone catches them.
Right.
So they're facing away from you and they got to do this little thing where they bring their hands up so that they don't flail out when they fall. Well, this person didn't do it correctly and nobody caught it and they told him to fall and he fell and he threw his elbows out he tried to sit down and panicked. But Bill, my boss at the time, pretty much caught him himself because he used to always position himself right where the person's buttocks would be if they folded.
Carry the bulk of the weight.
And I saw him take an elbow to the nose and seeing that from the peripherals was like, I'll fall with Bill there any day.
Yeah.
Because he was immovable, did not move, took that shot to the face, and that immediately built trust with everybody standing there. Like, yeah, he can catch a person who didn't do it right. Sure, I'll fall.
And sacrifice,
Yep.
He sacrificed.
He did.
That's one sure way to build relation or trust in the organization is when you offer sacrifice.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So let's go through some things here, Bill, with to give some good context, some good helpful tips.
Yeah. For building trust within a team, the number way I would encourage you to do it, and Jared and I have found this to work consistently, is what you say needs to align with what you do. And it needs to be done over time.
So it's not like when you tell your kids, do as I say, not as I do.
Exactly. So yeah, don't smoke here. It's what you say needs to align with what you do, or if you want to say integrity, right? That's, a definition for integrity. And first and foremost, it's about respect. You show respect and you give respect, and your respect from them is built back to you.
Right.
So you just want to make sure you're taking the time, and that builds momentum over time as you're consistent in doing. Consistency builds momentum.
Right.
And what you say is aligning with what you do.
Yeah. And when you do that, when you're respected as a person, right, it really is a testament to your authenticity. People look at you like, man, he or she is a really authentic person. Everything they say is kind of what they do. So it matches. There's a respect level there, but it also is a great testament to your authenticity as a person.
Yeah.
Person of character. And that's sometimes, this is harder than we're making it seem. Like, hey, just be a trustworthy person. Just gain respect and be authentic. But we know for a lot of people trying to work within an organization, and again, you're working with other people, trying to lead other people. This is a long game.
Yeah, as we mentioned the last episode, this is very much about the long game. And trust isn't built overnight. It does take time. Yeah. It's also about transparency.
Oh, yeah.
I have a saying I use often at my place of employment in our church, in our organization. Transparency builds community. Nothing more, nothing less, right? The more that people see that you're a transparent individual, how are you doing today? It's not a good week. I'm here to bring my A game as far as I have it for today, but it might be a little yesterday because this hit me hard, that hit me hard. I'm going to get over it. I'm going to be okay. The emotions need to work through it. I'll be back to my high level performance maybe tomorrow, but today's a tough day. Just being that authentic leader
Yeah.
really builds that trust. Like, oh, they're human.
Mm.
They struggle with some of the things I struggle,
Yeah.
right? So being transparent.
Yeah, I get a chance often to do this within my role because I do a lot of public speaking,
Mhm.
and so I got to be careful how much transparency I give, because I have a wife and children, and so I got to protect them as well. But there's a sense of community. You're absolutely right. When you share something, ooh, I didn't know he went through that particular experience. Oh, I didn't know he would have acted that way. Wow, that's really he's human too, but he's also really authentic.
Right.
He's transparent.
And it's not full transparency, as
Ooh,
Jared hinted
ooh,
at, right?
yeah.
There's some things about my family. I protect my kids. I got my kids back. They're my number one people that I lead and sacrifice for, give for, develop, grow, encourage. I don't give full transparency. I don't tell a story without permission.
Mhm.
And some of the personal things I just won't talk about at all, period. Won't even be
Yeah.
a topic.
They don't need to be talked about.
No, they don't.
Yeah. I think another really good way to build trust is taking ownership of your own mistakes, right? What an opportunity for growth, for yourself as a person, but also for others to see. Nobody likes the blame game, but there's a lot of people who will play it. So if you want to influence people, add value to people, if you want people to follow you right into the dark, into the unknown, if you will, own up to your own mistakes.
Wow. Yeah. One time I took over a team for a fellow manager while they were out on a longer vacation. And they asked me to cover this part of it and this part of it. And there were several steps over here in this part B. And I totally forgot about one of the steps. Totally spaced so 3 weeks worth of steps that weren't done. And she came back and said, we got to have a talk. And she said, what happened here? I'm like, I totally spaced. I am so sorry. That is my fault. Apologize. I will be happy to do whatever I can to own it and fix it, bring restitution for it, so to speak.
I mean, think logically here. I mean, does anybody like a person who doesn't own it when they blow it? That's super, super frustrating when you have a person who's like, they just blame somebody else. It's never their fault. So yeah, what an opportunity to grow. What a great example.
Yeah. I never made that mistake again, by the way. I'm always doing that step B when I'm helping out another manager. So lesson learned, but
checky.
Yeah. That's why pride, right? That's the number one enemy for us to taking ownership of these things.
Yeah.
There's that rise, a sense of shame that comes up and we want to hide it. And we want to bury underneath it and we don't want to deal with it and we don't want to face it. But a leader needs to have a certain level of emotional intelligence to be a good leader. And that means swallowing that shame, swallowing that pride, and surrendering to it. And it's the humility. It's not about me at the moment. I need to think more about this manager I covered for and the work that now they have to play catch up with that I failed to do. It's about them. And it's not about my feelings, my emotions. So
the other thing that this does, I noticed this with my staff. I've been working with the same group of individuals for a number of years now, and they'll actually cover me. Like when I do something or say something, they'll go to bat for me, and they may joke about it after when it's just us in our little staff hangs or staff meetings. They'll be like, yeah, you kind of blew it on that one. And I'll be like, guys, thank you so much. And you kind of cover me on that one. Ends up being a two-way street. But if you're always blaming, you're going to lose people and individuals really quick.
But if you own it, you demonstrate how to own it. And
well, it goes
that's caught by the people that you're leading, right?
It's kind of contagious.
It is.
But it goes into your next point about loyalty.
Yeah, it's about demonstrating the loyalty to your people. You letting them know that you got their back. And Jared just hinted them as well in his example.
Yeah.
When they know that you're out to protect them, that builds trust. I had a manager one time a manager above me, coming after one of my direct reports, one of my people saying, he's not performing, he's not doing this. I want him disciplined. And I said, no. And I said a little more professionally and lightly than that, but I basically said, no, we're not going to do that. And he goes, well, why? And I said, okay, let me take you into the reporting. All right. You look at his averages, percentages of his performance. It doesn't look good. But if we look at week over week and put that on a scale, you see the steady inclination of growth. And as he's doing, I said, he's improving. I'm not going to discipline someone who's doing better every week over week. He goes, you're right. I'm sorry. You continue on as you are. You're doing well with your team. So knowing that they see you demonstrating that you got their back for them, man, that builds trust. That really does.
It does.
Yeah.
It's really too, it's about being seen and known for living by your own values.
Yeah.
It's really a character question, how to build trust. People are going to be looking in and saying, they know who you are. They know what you stand for. And when they see inconsistencies that don't, what you're saying is not lining up with what we're doing.
It goes back to that first statement, aligning. What you say needs to align with what you do.
Exactly right.
Yeah. So it's also about showing respect for others. Treat them as an equal partner.
Yeah.
Right. When you are leading and say, hey, our organization has this hurdle, what ideas do you have? How would you fix this? Do you have any suggestions? Can you come present that at my staff meeting to my boss? So you treat them as equals, that they're contributing, they're valued, they're important, right? When they see that, it's like, oh, wow, I'm going to trust him.
Yeah,
exactly. He makes me feel heard, understood, as we've talked about in the past.
Yes. So. Another one too would be, focus on shared goals rather than personal agendas. And, that can be, again, it's another sacrificial thing, right? You're sacrificing your personal agenda at times for the shared goals of the team. And that's why, we obviously spend a lot of time talking about the adding value to people, because the nobody's personal agenda really at the end of the day is going to add value unless they specifically coordinated their personal agenda with the idea of adding value to people. Yeah. So usually you have to think through, is it shared goal or is this my personal agenda? And really focusing on those shared goals.
Yeah. And I'll add this, a lot of conflict comes about in organization about how we do something, not why we do something.
Why is more important?
I will die on the hill of why. If the purpose of this organization is to do this, right? To create this product to make people's lives easier. That is our purpose, right? How we go about doing that, there's many different hows that can take you to the same why, right? So I'll die on the hill of why, but if someone has a how and I'm in the minority, all right, we'll do your how. Okay, not a problem, right?
Still serving the shared goal.
Serving that shared goal of the why, not the how. That's the distinction to make, is that shared goal. Is it a why goal or is it a how goal? And it's a question to ask yourself as you work through that. So, yeah. Demonstrate compassion. Ooh, that's our next one. And we're going to beat this to death. It's so aligned in who Jared and I are, in our values as leaders and the values we have for our podcast. And that's why the name we have and the name we chose is the Value Added podcast. Demonstrating compassion.
That's a big word.
Care and candor. We've mentioned this before. Care and candor. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Connect before you correct. It's all the same principle, but as you're moving through having interactions, conversation, business meetings, team meetings, relationships with customers that are being observed by your staff, pepper it with compassion throughout. And it just demonstrates that humility that we talked about, the authentic caring of others that we talked about. The reality is people will leave jobs because of other people before they leave the job because of the work they're doing. The statistics just show that they'll quit jobs because of a boss or a coworker. It's not the work they're actually doing. So when you're showing and demonstrating compassion, you're creating a wonderful environment for your people to be operating in.
And that's, what an opportunity to build trust when you have an opportunity to show compassion. Yeah. I remember a story I heard. My dad told it to me years and years ago. There was a mill up here in the Northeast of the U.S. where we are, and the mill burnt down. And so everybody at the mill was like, well, we're out of work and we're out of a job. And the owner of the mill reached into his own pocket, paid his employees their weekly salary until the place was rebuilt and put them back to work.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, wow. Just a lot of compassion. There's a lot of people would have been like, well, go find a new job.
Well, recently in the pandemic, my employer paid, when they run out of sick time, they got long COVID, not short COVID, long COVID, until a clear path was discovered medically for them. My employer was covering the salaries of many people through that. For that, yeah.
The last one on here we got is listen, and then listen some more.
Yeah.
Right. We beat this one to death, I think, a couple of episodes again. Really? We won't do this again, but the whole idea of listening is so important if you want to build trust. I have worked for people who come in, they ask you how you're doing, they don't stick around for the answer. Yeah. Like, they don't listen. Or you bring something to the table and it's like, yeah, we're not doing that, we're doing this. There's no connection with their ears and their eyes. There's no connection with their posture. They don't really
two of these, one of these.
They don't care what you're saying. And that will actually break down any trust you may have already built. So learn to listen and listen well. Mm-hmm. And trust is really like a ladder. When you think about it, you climb one rung at a time. But if you fall, you miss a step, you go all the way to the bottom, straight to the bottom. This isn't one of those things you can catch yourself a run. Why? Because although trust is built in longevity, right? As soon as trust is broken, we're going to talk about this with some quotes here in a few minutes. Earning that back, that's another full-time job.
Yeah. Climbing the ladder the second time takes longer. It just does.
Yeah. So let's jump into this kind of an idea. What we've done with this episode, because we think it's kind of fun, or we had fun doing it. So we want to just kind of go, here's a quote, 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 and kind of break them down as we go.
Some quotes from some tremendous leaders in their own right.
Right.
And they have some quotes about building trust that we just want to go over and talk about with you.
Yeah. So here's one. You probably never heard this name on our podcast before, but John Maxwell. Right. You build trust with others each time you choose integrity over image, truth over convenience, or honor over personal gain. That is a lot of good information. So building trust is choosing integrity over image. And you don't have to look any further than professional sports, and you can pretty much identify these are the athletes who care more about their image. These are the athletes who care more about their integrity. Yeah. It's the same with leaders in organizations. It's the same with building trust. Are you a person of integrity, or are you a person who cares about their image? At the end of the day, I don't care if my boss drives a Tesla or a Ford Lightning or a Pinto,
right?
But if I don't trust them, I'm not following them.
And truth isn't always convenient, is it?
No, it's not.
No,
it's not.
It takes sacrifice to walk the path of truth.
So, and then honor over personal gain, which we've covered a little bit of that whole idea, but it's super, super important to understand, your honor is more important than your possessions and how far you go in life. Yeah. A dishonorable person, that's going to go against building trust.
And treating others with honor, over, I want to grow this organization so I can get better pay, so I can finally afford that Ferrari or lake house, or
again, nothing wrong with those things, but
they should be a side effect of a healthy organization led well, not the purpose of the organization,
right?
To serve you as a leader. Yeah. Craig Whitterow, good quote here. People will tolerate honest mistakes, but if you violate their trust, you will find it very difficult to ever regain their confidence. And that's that ladder imagery we just talked about. If you have a misstep, you fall off the ladder. Think of all the politicians in public faces that we've known have, a secret come out, an affair or embezzlement or fraud or whatever it is. Man, how long will it take for them to rebuild all that trust that they lost? That is a long, slow climb back up that ladder.
Yeah, I remember just one really quick story. I used to build houses, and we used to build. Used to build commercial elderly complexes and things like that.
Mm.
And I remember the crew that I was on for a number of years, great crew. We had worked together really well for a number of years. And I remember coming back from vacation, and first day of a job back from like a week or two vacation. And one of my coworkers is like, "Hey, look over the side of the wall." This is like a second story or third story. These are massive buildings. These walls you build and then you sand them. And I said, "Okay." So I looked over the edge of the building, and there's this long wall just laying on the ground. It had been framed. The plywood was on it. It was, and I'm looking down. And like, I look up at my employee. He goes, "That's the last wall you framed before your vacation. You were on vacation mine, weren't you?" And they started laughing at me. I'd framed it backwards. So I'd taken the two plates and kind of just, if you know anything about framing, usually you lay out from one end of the building. Well, I didn't put the layout where it was. And just, so long story short, he said, we picked it up, realized the windows were off, and kept pushing it and let it fall. Just rebuilt the wall.
Yeah.
But they tolerated my honest mistake because they knew who I was.
Yeah.
I'd already built trust and rapport with the crew. And they're like, yeah, this creates another, an hour's worth of work or whatever, but hey, it happens,
Yeah, when you have such a depth of trust, you can almost walk in and give them a dope slap and say, "Don't do that again," and hey, just move forward.
Right.
It's not an oppositional conversation.
Sure.
It's as we talked about in the last episode, having tough conversations. Just that the trust is there, the relationship is there. You just go forward.
Yeah, Craig Weatherup, we'll give you one more from him. I think he's a CEO of Pepsi or was.
Yeah,
I think that's who he is. You don't build trust by talking about it. You build it by achieving results, always with integrity. There's that word again.
Mm.
And in a manner that shows regard for the people with whom you work. So this one reminds me again, trust isn't built in a day. You don't build it by talking about it, by listening to our podcast. You have to listen and take it and learn it, apply it, and then you grow.
Yeah.
Right. But again, you've heard that one, Joe. You build it by achieving results with integrity and with regard for people. So valuing of people. There we go again.
Yeah, another word for regard is consider. Right? Are you giving consideration to? Are you thinking of how this is going to impact not just yourself, but the other people in the organization? Are you giving consideration to others? Or are you just making a one-off on your own by yourself decision? Unilateral. That's the word I was looking for.
Exactly.
So another quote from S.D. Smith: "You lead by what you do, and by what you do, you lead by what you do, and by what you don't do."
Mm-hmm. You lead by what you do and by what you don't do.
Sometimes leadership is about a mission and not just commission.
Right.
Being a good leader is not doing things that would be harmful, disrespectful, putting value on yourself rather than value on others. And so sometimes it's about what you do and what you don't do.
Again, that's another throw to aligning yourself with values as well.
Yeah.
Hey, my boss isn't going to do that. Well, how do you know? Just trust me. He doesn't do that. He doesn't fly that way. He doesn't drive on that side. He doesn't do that. Right. So that you lead by what you do and by what you choose not to do as well. So it's pretty cool. And last one we'll give you is General Colin Powell. He says, "The day soldiers stop bringing their problems is the day you have stopped leading them." They have either lost confidence that you can help them or concluded that you do not care. Either case is a failure of leadership.
That's huge.
That hurts, actually.
Yeah.
The day soldiers stop bringing their problems is the day you stop leading them. They have either lost confidence that you can help them or concluded that you do not care. Either case is a failure of leadership. But yeah, when we talked about this, I think a little bit, Bill, about one way you've connected with someone enough, or in this case, when you know that you've gained their trust, is when they'll bring your problems to you. And not just work related or organizational related, but personal problems.
Right.
You find yourself like, whoa, what am I, a coach or a therapist? Or like, but you've connected on a deep level. They trust you. Right. And so that's a great quote. But if they're not doing that, they stop doing that.
Start asking yourself a lot of questions.
Why?
That being the primary question. Why?
So yeah, so that's really, I mean, coming to the close of the episode. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Just remember, when you're building trust, trust is confidence. You're really trying to gain the confidence, right, of your team or those who are following you,
Yeah.
and what you say needs to align with what you do, right? And again, this isn't a one day. I'm going to do this, and
Long
then I'm going to
game.
be good. This is a long game.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us again. We hope to see you next time. Please like, subscribe. If you're on YouTube, please leave us a comment. We'd love to hear from you. Any suggestions or comments about the episode, or maybe there's a topic you'd like us to talk about. We'd love to hear from you. So thanks for joining us today. Have a great day.
See ya.